Welcome to my channel, Tanglemire Gardens. These are pickerel flowers, and to me they are just the most amazing thing. Probably out of all of my plants, including water lilies, these are my favorite. And it's really because I've been trying to work it out. Why would that be? And I think it's just the fact that they give so much to so many. The bees that are amongst here are just amazing. There are just so many of them. I doubt if you can see them all. I'll try to come in, but I don't know if you can see them. But there are just so many of them. There's also the little frogs that are living in amongst here. You don't get to see them very much through the daytime, but at night time there are just so many little sedge frogs here, which are just gorgeous. We also have hoverflies coming in here. We have dragonflies, butterflies. There's just so many insects that come to these plants, and I think that that's probably why I like them so much. They're also such a stunning display. Now this here, where are we now? We are at the beginning of November, and this display will go on until March next year, which is just outstanding. They just keep coming up. And what this place actually looked like just a couple of months ago, which if I come back here just a little bit. Now these things, if I stand next to them, are up to my ear. They are so tall. But a couple of months ago there was literally nothing here. You would never have known that these were here. They're all underground. It was just stunning. But if you would like to know more about them and how to care for them and what they do, then please continue on with the video. If you don't, well then thank you very much for coming, and I shall see you next time. Bye. I do love pickerels, and I don't mind in the least that they take over like this. A lot of people are not like that. Let me see, I don't know if I can get in there. Isn't she magnificent? They are absolutely amazing. I just love them. Dragonflies, bees everywhere, butterflies everywhere. Absolutely brilliant. I thought I'd start this part of the video showing you what happens from the other end. You've seen all the beautiful flowers, but what happens when all of that stops? And what that is in winter, of course. So this is a tub that I eventually ended up making into a pond. And you can see that all the plants have started to go brown. So this is what happens. They start to do this, then they go down they dry off into little tiny strippy pieces of brown that just sort of disintegrate after a while. So here I've got my friend Rowena cutting all of these pickerels down, and you cut them underwater, all right, to clean them all up, and then you just use that as a mulch, put it on your compost pile. So once that's all down, you just leave them alone. You just simply make sure that they've got water over the top of them, but other than that you just leave them alone. If they're in a dam, well, you don't worry about them at all. They'll just hibernate basically in the mud. So when it comes to my mum's place, I thought I'd show you what happened there, because that is in a dam. And what's happened there is that the grasshoppers have got into it, and you can see that it's just devastated. But for us, that doesn't matter. We don't care about that. It may matter to a lot of other people, but it doesn't matter to us, because the whole idea is to help feed the insects in the area and that's what my whole garden is about. By helping the insects, you then help the birds and the frogs and the lizards and everything else, and it just goes up and up. You come back to my place and have a look at what happened. Now, if you imagine the last year what happened, we had a big tree, which I have since had to cut down. And that's made all the difference here. But last year what happened, we had this big tree, and the plants had stopped flowering and had started to die off. But before they actually physically died, what happened, I woke up one morning to find that a great big gap, they'd all fallen over in this great big long gap. And I thought maybe a dog had come in, because they can get in here, had rushed itself through there and out into the park. But the next day, more fell over on either side of the gap, until finally, after a few days, the whole lot was down. Now, I don't know what caused that. I really don't. I wouldn't have a clue as to why that has happened. But what I did do, of course, was I cleaned it all up. And the reason why I cleaned it up was because the actual pickerels had actually started to come up again. So therefore it must have been coming towards spring. If I think about it, it must have been before spring, and they were just starting to poke their heads up out of the water. And of course I had all this dead plant all over it, so therefore I had to get that off, because if I didn't get it off, I would never get it off. Once the plants started to come up, I would never get it off. So I did all that, cleaned it all up, and then I just simply made sure it had water. And then that's it. Now, one thing with pickerels is they like to live in mud. All right, they love living in water. All right, they can live. They can grow about a metre down. They'll come up from the bottom. They will take over, as you can see with my lot. Now, my lot's contained. All right. The reason why I have this, and I'll just talk this over while you're watching me clean this place up, is we're on a bit of a slope. And so what happens is we have a creek at the back of us in the park. And so the road is higher than we are. So we've had all the water come off the house, come off the road, and drain down into the bog garden, which is 16 metres long. And then it comes over and falls into this area where the pickerels are. There are also two 100mm pipes in the driveway, and they come straight through the garage and under the paving, and they come into here as well. Then once this fills up, it then overflows, which I've made a little bit of an alleyway for it, and it goes out through the gate and down to the creek. So that's why we've got this here. I used to have it as a pond, but I never got to look after it. In the end, I just left it to grow, and especially once I put the sunken garden in, the water level went down too low, and I couldn't be bothered, and it just overgrew. So I just decided to grow these beautiful blue pickerels. They spread. These particular ones, blue ones, go straight up. White ones don't do that. White ones fan out and can actually cover over your blues. And they do continue on growing actually through winter, just spreading their roots out, and so therefore they can cover up other plants as well. So as it's flowering, what happens is you end up with a flower spike that has finished flowering. All right, that will then go to seed, and then I'll just do it so that we've got it here. All right, what it does is it then falls like that naturally, and all the seeds fall out. In fact, actually, we've got one here that's doing it. Hang on, where are we? I can get in here. There. So it's already done it. I can't see into the, yeah, hang on a minute, let me try and get you in there. Yeah, there you go. So you can see how it naturally bends, and then it does that, and they will become seeds, and they'll all drop down, and you get more plants. And so every one of them will do that. Now, to encourage more flowering, if you want to, you can actually go in and you chop out the whole stem, just as you do with dahlias, canna lilies and irises. They do exactly the same thing. I personally am not going to go in here and do that. These will just come and go as they wish. I'll show you where they're flowering from. Alright, so if we take this beautiful one here, alright, and it's actually flowering. The flower comes from the base, just like that. So let's see, here we are. Here's one that's just starting to come out. That one. See that? That's the flower. Oh, that's the flower there. Alright, and that will eventually come through that gap here and become one of these beautiful blue spires. Now, not every leaf will give you a flower, but most of them will. Alright, we've got a lot of flowers, buds coming up here as well to replace the ones that are being ending. They keep doing this, and then they start to slowly die off, and then the whole process starts again. So as I say, I personally happen to love pickerels. I really do. I love them when they're in great big stands like this. But the good thing, and I'll just show you here, is I've actually grown them in a tub. Alright. So I'll just have to make sure we get a bit of water in here, which I'll do later when it's cooler. But you can see how this has grown very well. I like to place them in amongst the garden. I think the whole thing looks really nice. I've got a nice coloured pot. My agapanthus is starting to come out and flower. The roses are in flower. This is loosestrife on the left here. That'll come into a dark purple. Now that's the thing, colour. Colour for pickerels. Now, I have been told that there are pink pickerels and there are purple pickerels. I've never seen them. I've seen pictures on the internet, but unfortunately I don't think I can trust that. So these ones are blue. Now the ones that are white, you can get a pure white, and then you can get a white that's got a touch of pink. Now one thing about planting pickerels, how do you do that? Because it's a little bit on the tricky side, because these things like to float. So what I'm showing you here is how I moved a bunch of pickerels out of the way, and you use a nice sharp knife, a serrated knife. I just use a kitchen knife myself, and you cut them up into sections probably about the size of your hand, and then take a stack of roots with you and then plonk them into a bucket or a container or a space like I have with my pickerel bed, where it has soil in the bottom of it. And now this is where it's going to get a bit tricky, because these things like to float. So what you need to do is you need to trim off all of the stems down to probably about, what was that? Say the size of your thumb, the height of your thumb, something like that, or your middle finger, something like that. You don't want too much, because otherwise what will happen, of course, is, as I say, they will float. And they're going to do that anyway. So then what you do is, if you cannot get these things into the mud, and they do float, get yourself a brick. Get yourself a rock, get yourself a brick, whichever, it doesn't matter. Plonk it on top of the root side of it, and just leave it there for a little while, maybe a week or two, until they start to get their roots out. which will anchor them down, and then they will stop floating for you. And that's the simplest solution. Then you just take the brick away or the rock away. Not a problem. And then off they go, and you really just don't have to do an awful lot with them. Just keep them wet. It is 6:45 in the morning, and the pickerels have opened their flowers some time ago, and the bees are everywhere in amongst all of this. Now, one of the reasons why I wanted to have these plants was because of the blue banded bee. That they move like lightning around here. Very rare would I ever be able to get a photo. And when I first came here about 25 years ago, I put in my little stand of pickerels, and we ended up with a couple of the blue banded bees. So I thought, oh, we better put some more in. So that's what I did. And then eventually, I think it was last year, we had about 25 or 30 of them. A bit difficult to count those guys. And so I was really impressed with that. What I thought I'd also mention here is that these plants like to live in full sun, and they flower best in full sun. They are stronger in full sun. Now, they will live in semi-shade. If I move you over to here, hang on a second, there. This bunch over here, it ends up in semi-shade most of the day. And I'm just going to get you a photo of a frog. Hang on a second while I'm talking to you, if I don't kill myself around here. So they will flower in semi-shade, but let me get him. Hang on a minute. There he is. Isn't he gorgeous? Lovely. There's so many of them here. But they become weak. The plants themselves become very weak, and the more shade you put in, the less flowers you will end up with, and the taller the plants will grow, but the weaker they become. And so therefore, when it goes to having wind or something like that, they just fall over. So really, these do prefer to have full sun. Now, they don't all grow as tall as this. These are living in sort of like constant water, the mud that's been in here. I never feed these. They're living off of themselves, really. Whatever decays back into the ground is what they live off of. Right. Anyway, I am just, I'm just in awe. I really am. But I must finish. All right. I thank you ever so much for coming. I hope you enjoyed the video. And I'm just watching all these magnificent bees. The girls are just such hard workers. It's just stunning, just stunning. Anyway, you have a great day, and thank you ever so much for coming. Bye.